For too long, you have mistaken African patience for permission. You thought our silence meant surrender. You believed our diplomacy was weakness. You misread our civility as chains, forgetting that even a lion sleeps with dignity. But I write you now, not in anger. I write you with the calm of the ancestors, with the stillness of those who stood beneath colonial gallows, yet never bowed their spirits. I speak with the voice of empires older than your archives, from kingdoms whose gold-built cathedrals you now claim as yours. This is not a letter, it is a reckoning. You came to our lands as guests and left as thieves. You entered with Bibles in one hand and bayonets in the other, preaching salvation as you shackled our minds and plundered our minerals. You renamed our rivers, desecrated our shrines, polluted our museums, and then dared to teach us civilization. What is civilization to a people who built Timbuktu when Paris was a swamp? What is progress to people who mastered astronomy while your king still feared eclipses? France, this is not about the past alone. This is about your present appetite. This is about how you still drink from African wells and pretend your thirst is righteous. You speak of partnerships, yet your embassies dictate our elections. You preach free markets, yet your companies monopolize our resources. You scream about democracy, yet your soldiers guard dictators who serve your interest. And in Burkina Faso, in the heart of West Africa, we say enough. You still owe us gold artifacts, blood, and truth. You've built museums from our stolen memory, economies from our stolen labor, and pride from our stolen identity. You created narratives that depict Africa as broken, yet it is your fingerprints that stain every fracture. You owe our mothers the sons buried under your foreign wars. You owe our soil the purity you poisoned for uranium and profit. You owe our future the dignity you tried to erase with every lie published in your newspapers, every puppet installed in our palaces, and we are no longer asking politely. The storm is not coming, the storm is already here. It gathers in the minds of our youth who no longer dream in French. It whispers in the chants of our people, who all reject your currency and your control. It echoes in the silence of African leaders who finally refuse to be pawns. You have until now benefited from our division. You fed on our tribal tensions, sowed discord, and presented yourself as the only solution to the chaos you engineered. But Africa has read the manual now. We've studied your tactics. We've named your games, and we've chosen not to play. We are building a new order, one not defined by your parliaments or polished in your press. A sovereign, unbought, uncolonized order rooted in truth, dignity, and justice. This is your warning. Return what you stole. Not only the artifacts that sit behind glass, but the resources, the honor, and the independence you stripped with treaties signed at gunpoint. Return them or face a generation that no longer fears your flags or your threats. You see, this is not just Burkina Faso speaking. This is the voice of Africa, unfiltered. The voice of Mali rising, the voice of Niger awakened, the voice of a continent that has been quiet too long. You may mock our courage on your screens, you may twist our message in your editorials, but the ground beneath you is shifting, your grip is slipping, your time is ending. We do not seek vengeance, we seek restoration. But make no mistake, restoration is not a request. It is a demand backed by resolve, and we are prepared to stand, to resist, and if need be, to rebuild from ashes. This is only the beginning. Signed with fire, not fear. From Ouagadougou to the conscience of a sleeping empire, wake up or be swept away. The currency of chains. France, let us speak plainly now. You did not just take our gold. You minted it into your prosperity, then returned to sell us back our own freedom at interest. The CFA franc, that colonial relic you swore was an economic partnership. Let the world hear it today. It is not a currency, and it is a lishek. For decades your government claimed it ensured stability. But whose stability? Was it the African farmer who could not export his harvest without your permission? Was it the mother in Ouagadougou whose bread cost more because the euro sneezed in Paris? Was it the young Buccaneer who had to flee to Lyon or Marseille to find value for his mind? No. The only stability it brought was to your stock markets, to your illusion of African dependency, to your dream that our nations would never truly stand alone, because your hand would always be on our throat. Disguised as a handshake, you demanded we deposit our foreign reserves with your central bank. You taxed our sovereignty before we ever collected it. You robbed us and told us to be grateful for your management of the spoils. How dare you? You built cathedrals in Paris with the profits from Congolese rubber, Ivorian cocoa, Burkina cotton, and then had the audacity to place African masks in your museums labeled not as loot, but as artifacts generously donated. You built wealth with stolen hands and then raised those same hands as if they were clean. But we remember how your corporations operated behind puppet regimes siphoning uranium from Niger, while her people sat in darkness. We remember how your embassies played chess with our elections, installing leaders who spoke French fluently but never dared speak freedom. We remember the coups you funded, the resistance you labeled as rebels, the patriots you called threats to democracy. No more. The youth of Africa are not your colony. We are not here to beg. We are not here to bargain. We are here to reclaim. And hear me clearly, this is not a request. And this is a final notice. So return what you stole. Not just the artifacts, not just the gold, not just the money sitting in your vaults. Return the respect, the agency, the right to chart our destiny without your shadow. We will no longer ask. We will act. The CFA franc will fall. Because a continent cannot rise with foreign change around its economy. We will build our own institutions. We will trade in our own currencies. We will educate our children in our own languages. We will define ourselves not through the lens of a Paris newsroom, but through the eyes of African wisdom and truth. You can call it defiance. We call it deliverance. And do not mistake our unity for noise. What you hear rising across West Africa is not mere outrage, it is order being restored. What you hear from Mali, from Niger, from Burkina Faso is the sound of empires being broken. Without bullets, just by the truth. We did not come to threaten you with war. But understand this, if you continue to threaten our freedom with debt, dependency, and deceit, then you will indeed face a storm not of our weapons, but of our will. A storm of minds awakened. A storm of youth mobilized. A storm of nations aligned no longer on your terms, but on our own. Africa will not remain in the waiting room of history. Our hour has struck, and in this new dawn, the old currency of control is worthless. The lion has risen, and he does not negotiate with those who once held the whip. The lion of civilization. France, you once covered a civilizing mission. You arrived with the Bible in one hand and a rifle in the other. You taught us your prayers, but banned our drums. You showed us cathedrals, then destroyed our temples. You spoke of light, but moved like shadows. And when you were done baptizing the soil in our blood, you dared to say we were better off. Better off. You erased languages that carried centuries of wisdom. You outlawed names that spoke of identity and spirit. You tore families from roots, turned kings into prisoners, turned queens into housemaids. You humiliated sages, buried griots, and then wrote your own version of history, where the conqueror is always civilized and the victim always silent. But hear this now. We were never uncivilized, we were uncolonized. And there's a difference. Before you built your palaces, we built kingdoms. Before your flags flew over our lands, our ancestors flew with the stars. Timbuktu was teaching the world when your kings were still hunting in forests. We birthed mathematics while you battled superstition. We honored nature while you divided the heavens into pieces of paper and called it ownership. So no, Franze, you did not bring us civilization. You brought us interruption. To see, your greatest success was not just in stealing land. It was in stealing the mirror. You made us see ourselves through your gaze, ashamed of our skin, our tongues, our gods, our rhythm. You didn't just rob gold, you robbed memory. You didn't just take cotton, you took confidence. You didn't just loot minerals, you looted meaning. But now the mirror has shattered.